Hello everyone, my name of course is Resonant and welcome back to another video. Now in this video we're going to do a bit of a commentary video that I haven't actually done for a while. I've been doing a lot of videos talking about new information on new games and things like that, but I've not sat down, brought up a subject and started a discussion with you guys, my audience. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and your comments down below in the section where you can talk about stuff, and I will try and reply to as many as possible. But I'm going to be bringing up this question and we're discussing my opinion on it, and yeah, I might just state this is purely for entertainment, so please don't take any of this too seriously. So this video is going to be about how the release of Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord could be the end of Warband. Now you all know Warband has been out for a long time. I think it was released in 2010, so it's coming up to its 7th year now, or is in its 7th year of being released, and it is still going really nice and strong. I would say the servers are pretty much mostly full. Obviously not every server is full, but you'll never miss a game. You won't go on and you won't be sitting there going, why can't I get into any game because there's no people. You'll always find somewhere, you'll always find someone to play with. May it be you want to play team deathmatch, siege and all that good stuff. There are a few game modes such as capture the flag that not many people play, but then again there will always be something that you want to play in the end. This goes as well for Napoleonic Wars and the community events surrounding that. They're still pretty much thriving, regiments are still going, and all in all, I think this game has lasted extremely well. It is aged very well, and it's not really been showing much chance of it going down the drain anytime soon. But with the release of Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord, will this all change? Now I'm going to go through a few scenarios where that might happen, and some scenarios where it probably won't happen, but to be honest, these scenarios where it might not happen are kind of scenarios I don't want to happen, as you might guess. So first of all, I think when Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord is released, there's so much hype that's been surrounded it. Everyone's going to rush it, they're going to buy it, they're going to be playing it 24/7. Everyone's going to want to get a piece of this new game. Now while everyone's doing this, Warband is going to go down slightly in its player count, obviously, but will it die completely? I'm going to presume that a lot of servers will be pretty empty when Bannerlord is released, but that is completely depending on the success of the new game. If Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord lives up to the hype that is being surrounded by it, if it lives up to the hopes that the community have for this new game by Tailworld's Entertainment, then I think Warband's going to be shoved completely in the dirt. Warband, probably one of my favourite games ever made. It is really such a revolutionary game in its genre. No game really went as far as Warband did in revolutionising the indie developer. They started off with 2 people in their studio, and now they are a fully fledged developer and making their sequel because of the fans they have surrounding this game. Something I want to go into is modding. Now modding is a massive part of Mount & Blade Warband. But with Mount & Blade Bannerlord, the news being that modding is going to be a lot freer and easier for developers. This means that why would they come back to Warband if it's so much easier to mod on Bannerlord? And if there's no mods on Warband, who's going to stay in Warband? So it kind of all relates down. It's sort of a domino effect, but because the modding is said to be, we obviously don't know exactly the means of it yet, it's said to be a lot easier on Bannerlord. That means that there's going to be a lot less mods for Warband, if any at all. But this kind of leads me on to my next point. If there are mods for Warband, I would probably predict there'll be no more multiplayer mods for Warband in the very upcoming days to the release of Bannerlord, and after Bannerlord I doubt there's going to be any whatsoever. This is sad, but it's just how it's going to happen. I don't actually know if there's any more developers or mod devs trying to get mods, multiplayer mods out for Warband at the moment, but unfortunately I don't think that's going to happen, since I think multiplayer is going to all but mostly die for Mount & Blade Warband. Now of course there'll be people on it every now and then. There'll be like a few people. I'd say we have about 100-ish people on a siege server at the moment. Let's say, I would say there's probably going to be about 20 once Bannerlord is released. It's really sad, but for the Mount & Blade Warband community, the multiplayer is probably mostly going to die. But you hear me say, I don't think modding is going to completely die for the single player of Mount & Blade Warband. This is because single player is something that doesn't really age. You need multiplayer, you need other people to play with, hence the name of multiplayer, but single player you can do whenever you want on your own. So I still think there may be a few mods coming out for Mount & Blade Warband single player, but obviously there will not be quite as many. So I'm going to compare this to some other franchises. Now the first one, you may be thinking, Resonant, why are you comparing it to this franchise? It's got nothing to do with it. Yes, it's got nothing to do with this franchise, but it's just a generalistic comment of what might happen potentially to the game. Now this is the Call of Duty franchise, and I guess you could put the Battlefield franchise in there as well. Now, when all the new games for COD and BF come out, most people, they rush onto the game. The servers are absolutely packed for this new game. Everyone plays it. And then they start to trickle back to the old games, depending on how successful. Obviously, with games such as Battlefield 1, there's a lot of people still playing that, but I've not actually played Infinite Warfare myself. But regarding the controversy behind it, I don't think it's doing as amazingly well as a really good Call of Duty game. But this may happen with Mount & Blade Bannerlord, depending on how successful it is. Maybe people are going to definitely rush into the game as soon as it's released. Everyone's going to want to play it. Everyone's going to get their hands on it, get their own opinions of it. But maybe people will start to trickle back into Mount & Blade Warband. Not necessarily because Bannerlord was unsuccessful. It may just be because they want to do a bit of both. They might not want to just release their tendons from Mount & Blade Warband just yet. They might want to hold on to that nostalgia. But I think Bannerlord is probably most likely going to kill the multiplayer of Warband. Not entirely maybe, but definitely somewhat take it down a peg or two. Now, on the opposite spectrum of this is the Total War games. This is a little bit more relevant since it is around the sort of historical genre, at least some of them are. Now, what happens with the Total War games? Let's take, for example, Rome 1 Total War. Now, Rome Total War was probably one of my favourite games. I remember getting it, but as soon as Rome 2 came out, the multiplayer for Rome 1 completely died. Now, you may think, yeah, Rome 1's an old game. It came out ages ago. It was like around 2004, 2005. I'm not completely sure of the exact date. But the reason this is such a big thing is because Rome 1, its multiplayer was still going until a few weeks before Rome 2 came out. Then after, it almost completely died. Now, this is not just the case of Rome 1 either. A problem I have seen with a lot of the CA games and the Total War franchise is the multiplayer doesn't seem to hold out as well as most other games. Within a good few months, multiplayer games are pretty hard to get, even in the most recent ones, like Attila, Rome 2. Rome 2 is almost impossible to find a multiplayer game, and that only came out in 2013. And Warhammer Total War, even that, you're not going to definitely find a game straight away. And that's the latest game. The Total War games don't seem to hold out too well on the multiplayer side, but to be fair, I think most people love playing the co-op campaigns with their friends and sort of things like that. Could this be the same thing that we see with the franchise of Mount & Blade? Could we see that Mount & Blade is really, really strong right up until the release of Bannerlord, and then it dies off? I think this is probably the most likely thing that is going to happen. My reasoning behind this is because I still play Mount & Blade Warband to this day. So many people still play it to this day. Like I said in the intro of this video, it's such a thriving community, even 7 years later after the release, and 9 years later after the release of the first Mount & Blade. There's such a massive community around it, and it's still active. Multiplayer games are so easy to get in Mount & Blade Warband. Massive events are so easy to get. So maybe it's going to go all the way up to the release of Bannerlord, and as soon as that comes out, maybe we're going to see some issues with the Warband servers. Now on to my final point. There could be some hope for Mount & Blade Warband after the release of Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord, and this is all down to do with the DLCs. Now, of course, the Napoleonic Wars DLCs was a massive success. I think it's probably one of the most successful DLCs that I've actually ever played, mostly because it was based off a mod from the community, so they were kind of playing safe with making this Napoleonic Wars DLC because they knew that people wanted it. But this could be the saving grace of the multiplayer for Mount & Blade Warband, at least maybe at the start. You see, a game such as Warband that's been out for ages has these DLCs, and I'm kind of especially referring to Napoleonic Wars here, since there's so many events around it, so much community around it with the clans and the regiments and things like that, that when Bannerlord is released, there will not be that. There's no Napoleonic Wars DLC that's going to be straight on the release of Bannerlord. So when people get into Bannerlord, they're going to rush into it, but it's just going to be the medieval era. Of course, there'll be mods coming out for the Napoleonic Wars. I do not doubt that one bit since the massive success of the Warband Mount and Musket mod, and maybe we'll even see a DLC down there along the line if we riot enough. But straight away, there's not going to be any Napoleonic Wars thing, so maybe people are going to play Bannerlord for its native side, its medieval side. But then they're going to come back from Mount and Blade Warband to play the Napoleonic Wars DLC with their clans, with their regiments in events, because I don't think people will want to go a really long time without having these Napoleonic Wars events. So I still think there's quite a big possibility, a quite big chance of these events happening even after the release of Bannerlord, and this could keep the game alive, or at least the Napoleonic Wars DLC. So what do you guys think? This has just been a bit of a discussion video. It's mostly me telling you my opinions on the situation and what I think is going to happen, but I'd really love to see what your thoughts are down below. Do you think the multiplayer is going to completely die for Mount and Blade Warband? Or will you still want to play it after the release of Bannerlord depending on its success? Or even if Bannerlord is extremely successful, will you still want to come back to Warband every now and then? Personally, I think the single player is a given that people are still going to play it because that's just how single players work in games. People come back if they love it. But do you think that the Napoleonic Wars DLC could be the saving grace of Mount and Blade Warband? I would say the Viking Conquest DLC, but looking at the multiplayer of that, I don't think it has too much of a chance of saving Mount and Blade Warband, since there is literally no servers with anyone on it at this moment in time. But remember, leave your comments down below on your thoughts on this situation and the topic I brought up today. But I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Once again, this was just a video for entertainment. There's no new information for Bannerlord as of yet, but I will definitely be sure to keep you updated on that. So stay subscribed if you want to see all the juicy information we get to see from Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. You know what to do if you didn't. But until then, I will see you in the next one.